Um, Good afternoon. Just making sure, can you hear me well? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're delighted to welcome you all here to this policy briefing entitled The War and Its Implications for the Western Balkans, the Perspective of North Macedonia, with His Excellency Mr. Fatmir Besimi, Minister of Finance of North Macedonia. Welcome, Minister Besimi. It's a pleasure and a real honor to have you with us here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marta Mucznik, and I'm a policy analyst at the European Politics and Institutions program of the European Policy Center. Now, before we begin our discussion today, let me just briefly say a few words about Minister Fatmir Besimi, who currently serves, as I've said before, as Minister of Finance of North Macedonia. He has an extensive career in government, academia, the banking sector, and international institutions. I'm not going to list all of his very long-standing achievements over the course of his career, but I will just say that he has held over the years several public office posts, including serving twice as Minister of Economy, then Minister of Defense, and after that he served as Deputy Prime Minister in charge of European affairs. And I think it's safe to say that you've dedicated a significant part of your life and career to North Macedonia's EU and Euro-Atlantic integration agenda. It's really a delight and a pleasure to have you here today. Now, we will first listen to the minister's opening remarks, and afterwards I will open the floor for Q&A with the audience. I really encourage you to, as much as possible, participate in these interactive discussions, take the floor, ask your questions. This is your opportunity. Now, Minister, Russia's war against Ukraine has really transformed Europe's security landscape and even forced the EU to rethink not only its place in the world, but also how it engages with its vicinity and its immediate neighborhood. The new Zeitenwende, or watershed moment, as it came to be known over the course of the past year, has also dramatically changed discussions about the future of enlargement, while also reinforcing its geopolitical dimension or the relevance of EU enlargement. And of course, this has had a great implication and impact for the Western Balkans EU membership aspirations as well. Mm-hmm. I would like to just first start by asking you, how do you see this watershed moment that we are now facing? Give us an overview of the main geopolitical and geoeconomic challenges that result from the war in Ukraine and this new watershed moment for the region, but also for North Macedonia. So how are the geoeconomic consequences of the war affecting the region's economic growth and also its EU's membership prospects?
Thank you, Marta. I'm very glad to see the audience here and also delighted to be here. And this is now first time as a Minister of Finance to be here at your institution here. But as a Deputy Prime Minister for European Affairs, I had a similar discussion here. Maybe some of them, I see friends here. We have discussed at that time about our EU perspective and what we are doing and all the challenges that we face. And today, from today's perspective, we have moved. We are not on the same point where we were stuck at the process, and also the EU fatigue at some point came into for the region, not only for EU member states, but also in the region, and other challenges of populist politicians and anti-establishment, this social network revolution, technology. So all this kind of stuff, and also in Europe, the similar trends were going in political scene. And from that time and now, things has moved forward for the good in terms of our country, for a European perspective. Now we are on the stage of a screening process, and we did several steps which were important political steps, and also in terms of the reform, the commitment for EU membership, and actually working through opening the negotiations. We did certain, as I mentioned, amendments on our constitution. It was a huge political challenge for the country, but at the end of the day, we understand that these are part of our building our future. And as we understand, Europe is a family where the member states show many values, among which the first one, the solidarity. So we have to show this solidarity from our side as a new member state, and also to prove that we believe in EU values and we want to be part of this bigger family, and also want other members to feel the same and comfortable and happy about. I use this very general language just to make things simple. And then through politics, we can explain all this, how difficult and complicated we want to make the case. But in general, our people want to be part of EU. Since our independence on the 90s, Euro-Atlantic perspective for the country has been strongly supported by our population, from more than 90% of a population during the surveys. Now it's still very high, above 70%, 80, 60, but it's depending NATO or EU. So now today we are speaking as a NATO member and a candidate country for joining the EU. You know, probably from the Western Balkans, we are among the first countries to apply for membership. And it was in 2001 when we did this application. In 2004, we have the Stability and Association Agreement. Then the process was long, but and of course with many challenges, but no one expected it to be easy, to be frank. Politicians sometimes during the elections, they try to use the process for electoral purposes, but at the end of the day, people understand that this is a process that will take time and also requires a lot of commitments and investments, whatever investment they are in terms of reforms, in terms of social challenges, but also in terms of political trade-offs that we make. And when we are on this process, especially now talking on today's perspective, when no one expected the war in European continent. We are witnessing on TV media, someone has also been there to show the empathy and solidarity with Ukrainian friends, colleagues, or politicians. But it is really something that what happens now, having this invasion of Russia and Ukraine, something that since we have seen in the movies or when you show documentaries about the Second World War, and and now we see this in news. We see reports on the news, and actually this is our reality. When it was the COVID crisis, and one of the aspects that was spoken in terms of the policy response and what is going on with COVID, one word that came during this kind of discussion was the new normality. And what is the new normality at that time talking about is that probably we have to get used to live in a crisis, because the world is becoming so connected, interdependent, and issues are becoming very complex. Something that we haven't known before in the theory or in the practice. So things are becoming more complicated and complex, but also the tools and solutions and collective knowledge is higher. And we have to face this challenge. We have the experience, we have a lot of tools and mechanisms to address it. And so at the end of the day, this is the challenge of our generation. Like in the past, the previous generations have had their challenges, but this is coming now with again, something coming back to the war. It's, you see people in the field, in the streets, they are killing each other, people that used to live before together. We have seen this in ex-Yugoslavian and in the Balkan region. But now you are dealing with one big country, which is one of the superpowers. And they have the nuclear weapons. and there are nuclear power plants, and something that the damage can be, overall, for not only for economy, what we see, but also for humanity. It can be on serious danger. And again, you have two countries which are main exporters of strategic food products. So again, this challenge is even more than just looking aside the war as it is only between two countries. And it is not like that. So now I'm moving from one aspect to, because I don't want to make a linear presentation, I want to connect things. And then probably we'll come out with other questions. Talking about this new normality, you have the COVID crisis, then you have the energy crisis, the inflation overall in other countries, and you have on top of this, we have this Ukraine invasion. It's more than just Russia and Ukraine. It's more about two different approaches. Probably Russia wants, through Ukraine, to show to the Western, let's say, Euro-Atlantic, let's say NATO, and also the Western politics, that want to challenge, actually. I'm not going to analyze what is the objective, because it's not our topic today, of Putin, but obviously he wants to challenge and also to get more support and to continue his power in his own country. But what's going on now, and what we face as in the Western Balkans, and now as a candidate country, the process, like Stability and Association Agreement, and the process itself has been asymmetric to support trade for candidate countries like ours. Now, as our economy is becoming more integrated with the European Union in terms of trade, we have 80% of our trade with the European Union, and we are small economy, open, which is 160% of GDP is trade. And also FDIs, the larger FDIs are coming from European Union countries. So you can imagine, in our largest trading partner of 80% trade, more than around 60% is with Germany. And I don't need to explain, if Germany economy is slowing growth, it affects our economy. If prices in Europe are increasing, it affects our economy. If energy prices are increasing, it's also affecting our trade balance. But if they are rocketing, like what happened last year, they severely affecting our trade balance, and also our inflation, because in our if you see the structure of our economy and our consumption price index, it's 40%, around 40%, 37% is food. And out of this, 50% is imported, and mainly from Europe. So food prices increases in Europe affected our economy and inflation as well. So we reached the peak in October with 19.8% inflation. And then now we are reducing every month, and we are doing quite well on this, but still on 2-digit. And on this process, and also with energy challenges, fuel and electricity and fuel and gas, oil, actually. So these are the things that affected last year. And our trade balance reached to 22% of GDP deficit, compared to what we used to have before 13, 14, something like that. So this is talking about how the war in Ukraine affected our economy directly and indirectly. As a candidate country and as a NATO member, a candidate country for EU, we followed all the policies of sanctions towards Russia. Mm-hmm. And we also were showing that as a country, we are clear in our policy according to this situation. And this is that we also support it bilaterally as any other member state of EU, Ukrainian government, with financial and also other needs that they had. I mean, say what we had in our defense and financially, and also solidarity towards the people. But this is something that, on the other side, when we have this crisis impact, we are also in a need for something that Europe needs to show the support and solidarity. The solidarity about the policies and consistency about this is also have to come back. It's good Europe showed this solidarity with macro-financial assistance during the COVID. And then also now we are talking, they also announced, European Commission, a 1 billion package for energy to support the region. And also 80 million, out of which 80 million we got grant this year for 2023 budget support for energy crisis. So this is a good sign of cooperation, and also we need additional macro-financial assistance on this. So this is on economy side. In terms of politics, we think that this can also be as an opportunity. Opportunity in terms of European integration and enlargement toward the Western Balkans. You know, probably this is a human way how we work and try to and are doing things. We intend to plan things and try to make things perfect. It never worked like that. But then happens things unexpectedly, and we are threatened. When we see a threat, we act more actively. And something that previously was unaccepted, you see immediately it becomes something normal, new normal. And this is what we saw last year. European Commission granted the candidate status to Ukraine, to Moldova, and also to Bosnia and Herzegovina. We know that in Bosnia there are many challenges, but European Union, it's not just a process that you know, you show results and you get the reward. European Union is also a process that you from European perspective, you give and you expect, you motivate, you incentivize, and also it's a kind of you put the process on track, and it increases the accountability and controllability of the process, even in the local politics and reforms. There are studies. One of them I also have done while I was this sabbatical in 2017-18. The structural reforms in countries, candidate countries that are at early stage of negotiation, and new member states. And results among several studies are similar. Countries that become member states, they are better off in terms of catching up with European Union rather than being out of the European Union. So this is something that we have seen. It was because the local politics has also their election cycle. And not always the reforms are very much politically attractive. Yes, they are in general better off, but when you go and on more on stakeholders in the society, you will find out that not always politicians has an easy decision about this. So, and now the timing, when I said political, is might be an opportunity. Usually in crisis, there's opportunity. Maybe European Union enlargements of the Western Balkan comes to the priority list of the EU member countries, and it's not only because of we immediately change our mind and understand that these countries will be better off, and just because of the solidarity. Let's be very open and frank. It is because if it remains like that, it becomes a danger. Might be other influences. Russia has their own influence, not very high, but even among some politicians in the region. And this is a challenge, what we see now going on in Ukraine. And might be, I'm not saying that this we should use as a threat, but we should be aware of how things may go and can go. So on this context, we have seen also in the Balkans, as I say, said about Bosnia and Herzegovina got candidate status, Kosovo visa liberalization, Albania and North Macedonia, we started the screening process, and hopefully by the end of the year we will officially open the negotiations. So, and our internal agenda or objective is that by 2030 we'll become a full member of European Union. And this is what also dictates the narrative of politicians in the country. Everyone says, yes, we are for EU, but on the other side says, okay, what EU means and what we have to give in on this. So these are the things now currently going on in our politics. And in terms of the economy, I may come back, so I'll leave some more space for questions. Yes. So there are many things I can share also about the economy, what we do in politics, but I will leave this to audience interest to see what topics will be of most interest.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Minister Besimi, for your very candid remarks. Before I open the floor to questions and answers, I have just a couple of follow-up questions to some of the things that you've said, and two things that relate to two somewhat separate issues. One relates to this new geopolitical momentum, as we've discussed and as you've pointed out. I've just been actually in the region and in a forum called the Balkan Dialogue, the Balkans Dialogue. And one of the things that came up a lot, especially between sort of Brussels-based analysts and experts and then experts from the region and leaders from the region, is that there was this question mark and doubt that they weren't sure to which extent leaders of the region fully understood this new geopolitical momentum in favor of EU enlargement also to the Western Balkans. And that sometimes there's a certain rhetoric in Brussels, and that rhetoric is not necessarily translated in the region, not only from the leader's perspective, but also from the civil society's perspective. And also following up on what you've said about public support for EU membership, of course, there's overwhelming support, but we've seen also, I think, this past year also on some public opinion polls that sort of detect a certain decline in support for EU membership. And also from what I've seen, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there's from opinion polls in North Macedonia also a lot of opposition to the constitutional changes that are required to open negotiations of the first cluster. So sorry, it's a lot of questions, but maybe you can just address and then we'll open the floor for the audience to raise their questions as well.
Oh, thank you, Marta. In terms of this geopolitical momentum, I think, it is there, but it's not very clear yet. When I say not very clear, it's in terms of wider electorate, because at the end of the day, they will vote for politicians. And we have still some political leaders in the region which have this shorter dioptria, because in terms of political life cycle, too much emphasizes on the election outcome and results. Sorry, and
the Western member states as well, not just in
yes. So this is, but that if in the Western countries it is there, but institutions are much more developed. And there is certain limitation what these populist politicians can do. Yeah. In the region, you have still some of countries that has very fragile institutions and sensitive political model like Bosnia and Herzegovina that we have. We know it's very challenging, the model of governing and how the the system is set up. Then you have still open issue, and which is good that there is some agreement between Serbia and Kosovo, and we have still our internal political challenges for constitutional amendments, which are related to the issue with our neighbor Bulgaria. And if you see this constellation, some political skeptics might, and these anti-Western interest groups might find some field of intervention, because Europe is far, Europe is demanding too much from us, and whether Europe likes us or not, and whether we need Europe at all. If you go in terms of figures, it's very easy to recognize that Europe is not only what is our future, but it is our destiny. As I mentioned, the largest trade is with European Union. We are very much integrated with Europe. Even our people, immigrants, are living in European countries and Western countries. Some of them are in the United States and some of them in Australia, but mainly the majority are in European countries. None of them is living in Russia. We don't have investments from Russia. We don't have other connections in economy. So this is purely politics trying to take the advantage of some, let's say, delays in the process. So in our country perspective, we have now the process. Through the process of screening, we also have to complete the constitutional amendments. Official politics or government is very clear on this. I think we stand strong in terms of our European future, and also we initiated the process of constitutional amendments, and we do the campaign. We explain about this, and this is also an inclusive process, because at the end of the day, what the constitutional amendment at this stage means is we include in our constitution Bulgarians and other communities. So it's an inclusive. We give more. We show that as a culture, we already are a multicultural society. We have already several communities in our institution recognized. So it will be just a continuation of that and being even more open. What is now in this case, the opposition, they are extending the explanation of what's going on with these constitutional changes. And if you read the statements, you'll find out that there is some inconsistency in the opposition side about this. But however, we are on the process and of moving toward this. We went through a similar process years ago before we become a NATO member, and now we are working through that again. And our challenge is how to get 2/3 of the MPs to pass these amendments in the parliament. But we believe through an open discussion process on this and bringing arguments on a table of political debate and also wider society involvement, we believe that we can manage this process as well. So this is the challenge that we have now on the process. And meanwhile, all the administration works on every day. We have here the ambassador. We have here in Brussels our team of experts and administration working for the screening, bilateral screening. So.
Thank you, Minister. I will now open the floor for questions. Okay, I see one there, and please.
Thank you very much, Minister. It's very interesting to hear from you. I work in the European Parliament, and as I speak, someone from my team is in the Sobrani for the Joint Parliamentary Committee with North Macedonia. Pleased that in the end we were able to travel after the incident. Two questions related to that. One, how confident are you that you will get all the constitutional amendments finally ratified in time? And two, what can we do to stop incidents like happened last week and the concerns of the Bulgarians dominate the relationship, the European Parliament and North Macedonia and Sobrani, but also between the EU and North Macedonia generally?
Yeah. Okay, I respond all right to that. Okay, in terms of this issue about the constitutional amendments, we need 80 MPs out of 120. The majority now has, and the political parties that will vote MPs around 72. And there are still more needed from the opposition, and we are talking with them. We are trying to bring all the arguments, what this means in terms of European Union and our perspective as a country, and also good neighborly relationships. There are strong ties among two neighbors in this case. I believe that more frequent communication and share of information between countries, institutions, and decision makers or policy makers will help the process and avoid any misunderstandings. And that is the only way. We just need patience. We need to talk. We may disagree. Again, talk. There is no other way. We have to talk until we come to something that we understand each other together. And this, there is, in my, again, it is in my understanding and my this life experience in public office, always you have to talk and bring arguments and talk. If you give up, then you lose. Talk and try to understand your partner on the other side. It's not on the other side. It's not the enemy. It's the partner. We have to sit and find. Actually, from finding instead of looking for differences, we can try and find the similarities. Then we can find the way how to solve also these differences. And in this context, I really believe that there is enough room to move from this. If you talk with politicians, also I'm a politician. I'm not trying to create another image about me, but I'm more in terms of the portfolio. My approach is more like a technocrat, because it's easier to find as a Minister of Finance to find everyone, to bring everyone on the table, majority and opposition. You need opposition also in the parliament so from that point of view, I think by working and talking with the opposition and explaining, and also trying to avoid any kind of situation that you refer to, because on real political side and the establishment, there is no such intention to provoke the situation. That must be a clear message from both sides, and then we will find solution. And if you go, I will share this. Probably you will remember at some point. I see some younger administration here, experts. So in your life, in your experience, you will find out. And it happens to me in a small country. I have been relatively from 2002 in politics. So it's 20 years. I started very young, like some of you that are here. In a small country, I have seen, and I know personally, all political leaders, both in majority and opposition. I have been in the government with prime ministers from the opposition that are now, and some of them are not in the country because of unfortunately some difficult periods in the past. And you know them personally. You can find solution. You know, people at the end of the day, you talk to a person, to people. If you recognize and respect the one who sits in front of you, there is no way you cannot find a solution. But there is what usually in books you'll find the leadership. We need this kind of leadership now to bring back on the politicians in the region, because the leadership, when I say I mean how much you are ready to bring on the table for the solution. It's not just taking from the table. You have to bring on the table. I remember as a student, we visited a church in a Bath in Wales. And usually when you go to church or other, let's say mosque or whatever, you give money. Yeah. There was a box, and it is a closed box, and you put your hand in, and it's covered with some fabric, and it's black. You don't see what is in the box. And I was curious, what is this about? I see people bringing. And then I asked the priest to explain what is going on, because by religion I'm a Muslim. I wanted to understand, to learn more. And the explanation was it's a local tradition because people, some of them have money and they give in the box, leave in the box. But some of them don't have money, they have to take from the box. But still in the society, they have to have their integrity. You don't ruin the integrity of people if you want to live together. So they must respect each other. We must respect each other for the solution. So this is something that I share with you as a life experience that at the end of the day matter a lot in the solution. So this is the way how I see this, not a classical politician, but from the terms of view how we go through solutions when we have differences on several issues. And for this, I'm optimistic that we will open negotiations as it is scheduled on this negotiation framework from European Union with our countries.
Thank you, Minister. Good to hear that you're optimistic, and indeed, political will is key in this process, and leadership and political will. I see there are a couple of hands raised. You had a question, and then yes, please.
Do I need to unmic?
Yes.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Recita. I am a trainee at the European Parliament, and I wanted to ask two questions specifically. The first one is, taking into account the implications of the war in the Balkans, I would like to focus on disinformation and misinformation, because although the Macedonian government has been firmly on supporting EU policy towards Russia and sanction and everything, attitudes in the population, recent polls have shown that have quite different opinion. So my question is, what is the strategy of the government? So when you sit in your government sessions, what are you talking about on how to bring this attitude of the government and attitude of the people closer together? Because there is quite a divergence between those two. And my second question is talking about EU fatigue. Since 2014, we have seen a drop of almost 20% in support for EU integration in Macedonia, and more in the region, especially worse in Serbia and in some other countries like Bosnia. So what is your strategy as a government to bring back credibility to the process? Because EU is using its mechanisms. We can argue how successful they are, but what is our government's, because I come from there, what is our government's strategy to bring, to address this frustration?
Perhaps we collect a few more questions, because I see a few hands raised. Yes. And there's one in the back and one here as well.
Okay, thank you. Minister, we know each other well. Thank you very much for coming and for making this presentation. And I just wanted to start by saying that I salute your generosity towards certain countries and governments and people who are not represented here. I think that my personal view is that the measures that your country has been made to go through by a couple of its neighbours for the sake of the European integration process is really outrageous, and these demands have not been made of other countries. The question and a half that I want to ask you is: do you feel that the EU's commitment to Ukraine has had beneficial effects for you as well? And that's my perception, that a new commitment to Ukraine has actually raised all of the boats. And then on top of that, as we were discussing just now, what consequences do you think there are for Turkey, particularly after the elections, but also as a result of a new EU policy a bit more favorable to enlargement?
Okay. And here, and then in the back.
Hello, my name is Svetlana Taran. I'm a research fellow here at the BC from Ukraine. And my question is about Ukraine. You mentioned several times about Ukraine's accession process. And I'm wondering, how do you see how Ukraine's accession is influencing your accession, I mean, accession of your country and accession of Western Balkan countries, and also how it can influence the EU enlargement policy in general. And also, how do you see Ukraine as a partner or as a competitor in this process, and how we can help each other and cooperate and make it beneficial for us? Thank you.
Perhaps we let you answer now, and then we take another round of questions.
Yes, okay. In terms of, there are two aspects how the government can change this or close the gap between what is the government commitment and the public attitude with the EU fatigue and this. One is probably much more effective way of communication to public to explain. This is now because the question was about the government. The second is by showing results. Now is the trick, and this is when the local politicians sometimes hijack because of the election expectations. So the result in our screening process now is not only what happens in Brussels, but it is what we will do with constitutional amendments. And this is the challenge. We will one thing that we will see is the showing results here in Brussels, completing the screening and showing that we are ready. And the second, to show the results in on opening negotiation, it's about the let's say about the process that we need to run before we get the results. And it's not an easy process, but we have to show the commitment. For example, fight of corruption can be one signal, yet we are more vocal on this. Reforms in judiciary, another thing. Investments in the infrastructure, effective use of IPA funds and other Western Balkan investment funds, and having supporting new investments in terms of creating jobs. This can be something that government gains the credibility. There are two ways the government gains credibility. One is on what they are doing, and the second is what they are getting from the partnership from one point. This is from the government. The other part is what we say this, you borrow the credibility. The government can borrow a credibility from European Commission if European Commission delivers. And coming back to your question, so European Commission now, European Union as union reacted to what happened in Ukraine, what I at the beginning mentioned to the context. You have the process and you just expect countries to tick the boxes. We know for how long Ukraine waited for candidate status, and it suddenly happened because Russia invaded Ukraine, and then European Union saw what is the negative impact and what is the risk for European economy if Ukraine loses this war, and how things can go on a different direction. Then Europe made a political decision, because at the end of the day, European Union is a political deal among the countries in Europe to ensure peace, sustainable peace and economic prosperity. And from this perspective, we can't see Ukraine as a competition in the process. It's constructive to have this transparent process and positive to compete how fast each country is progressing on reforms. We see Georgia was doing quite well. Now Georgia has several challenges. But when you put on the same table, on a same screen, let's put it, each country of the Western Balkans, so candidate countries putting here, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, that is on the same process, Turkey, then this can be additional pressure for local politicians. When you see other countries are progressing and they are moving forward with you, And then you have to explain to your people why you are not doing the same, why you are losing this opportunity. So coming back, the response is not very easy. So now is the government step to do the constitutional change, to do this move, and also open negotiation. And then again, politics is something that we have to, as a playground. Then these governments should get the political support from European Union. European Union leaders can come and show support to the country. Like we had the president of European Commission in our parliament and several EU member states, prime ministers and head of states coming to the parliament addressing. So this is how we will gain it. But if we put it in a calculation that people don't support and we don't move because we won't get their votes, then we are lost. I think we have to take some risk because this is part of that leadership. You don't just get what people see, but you have to show the future. We have to clear the vision. And that takes sometimes some risk. And in terms of the question about how the politics, if I refer to this, is going to Turkey, was something about the results or?
Yes.
How do you think this affects the likelihood of Turkey joining?
Yeah, I think the process of joining the EU, including Turkey, we cannot make we cannot compare our case and Turkey. It's a very big country, a big economy, and we know what it means for European economy and the process. But again, and it is my opinion for the whole process and for EU as in general, for enlargement of EU. As far as for Western Balkans, because these are small countries, they are in European continent. Europe, my viewpoint, should not be worried of doing the first step. And during the negotiation process, become strict, and especially after you become a member, we have known several initiatives here for Europe, how it will work together. I think that's the way how for the Western Balkans. For Turkey, the same in terms of what are the values that European members share and expect the Turkey to reach the same level. At that point, I think the economic aspects, which I think are an issue for a European market, should intensify and probably design a model for Turkey itself. Not only Western Balkans and Turkey probably cannot handle the same process. Probably can be some specificities on this. So, but at the end of the day, I think if the progress in this process will be a win-win. This is my opinion. Yeah.
Thank you. We had a few more questions, and it's the last round of questions because afterwards we're nearing the end of the session. But I'm happy that we have so much engaged participants. I know you in the back, you had a question, and then I think there's another one here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Alexander Lungerov from Institute for International Law at KU Leuven University here in Belgium. You mentioned Serbia-Kosovo relations, and I would like to ask you, how do you think about the fact that the issue is still open may influence the position of your country? It's been around for a while, the issue. Your country was able to solve the name issue with Greece also after at least 2 decades. We can think that a national identity issue that's now on the table with another neighbor may be solved as well. And from the outside, I think you can say that North Macedonia has been able to manage both the Kosovar and the Serbian sides quite well. But I think many observers would agree that it's not exactly moving forward. So how would you see evolutions there, both in a regional perspective, from a regional perspective, and from, let's say, a larger geopolitical perspective? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And there's one other question here from.
Martin Schieder from the European Commission. Thank you very much, Minister Besimi, for the excellent presentation. I have a question concerning the energy crisis. As you have indicated, the trade balance deteriorated and the inflation increased very much. North Macedonia is also very energy dependent in imports. What are the country's plans to reduce the import dependency, to progress with the green transition, and to progress in areas such as energy efficiency and renewables? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two very different questions.
Yeah. Because it was a political discussion on previous question, I will respond to that, then come to the question about the energy. In terms of Serbia and Kosovo dialogue, North Macedonia has made a clear position on this, that support the solution that these two countries will achieve. And we want, and we see this success of this dialogue as a success for the region, not only for peace, the sustainability of peace, but also for economic cooperation and development of the region. In terms of the investors, the region is seen as one. And then we see where they have labor, where they have what are taxes more or less. There are some initiatives to harmonize this, but when we compete, you will see that policy incentives for investments will be more or less the same. So from this point of view, we as a country have shown the capacity to make solutions, to bring solutions, even when they are difficult, as that one was with Greece, and now about the name issue, and now with to clarify the issues with Bulgaria, and we have a good neighborly relationship agreement also with Bulgaria signed. We also had previously interethnical challenges and conflicts, and we managed to build. And again, we'll come to that point. You know, building peace is not easy. It takes time. It requires commitment. You have to believe in it, and you really have to make a contribution to that. It will not come by itself. And as I mentioned, talk and talk again. And if it's not going well, sit again and talk again. Because it is stuck somewhere, because on the first meeting, you probably didn't foresee all the challenges, which doesn't need to be intentionally. Sometimes you just miss it. Come again. Talk over again, talk over it. If we don't miss the goal, if we are really sincere of what we want to achieve, it's no way we can miss it. And for the same, I believe with this Serbia and Kosovo dialogue will succeed. Probably it's a matter of time, but will succeed because there is a framework design. We were very, as a country, we were very delighted to see that Ohrid one of these meeting points for leaders of both countries. And this is a recognition for what our country is doing in terms of finding solution for this. So I think looking forward, we'll solve this as well. And for us, it's important. Kosovo and Serbia are two neighbors for North Macedonia. And whatever in terms of trade and in terms of cooperation is with first with neighbors, then it goes with other partners. In our case, EU, such partner. Coming to, I hope, unless I gave some insights about your question. In terms of the energy and sustainability, energy security, energy independence, efficiency, renewables, and we are working on several fronts in improving the energy efficiency, increasing the investments in renewable energies, and also in infrastructure diversification of gas pipeline and this. So we have relatively high investments in renewables and solar power plants. Because of our nature, we can and sunny days we can have a good investment feedback from renewables in solar. We also have international tender for one hydropower plant, which will be one of the largest hydropower plants in Europe. So on that direction, we are finalizing the infrastructure for gas pipeline, which in the future the model what we have, the technology that we have installed will be used also for green hydrogen. So this is in terms of the energy. So we'll ensure that in the future we will manage to have this energy independence and security. So these are many aspects. I can go in more details, but I see that's all there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Minister Besimi. It's been a pleasure and a delight and an honor to welcome you here at the European Policy Center. I think this was a very interesting and engaging and optimistic discussion. I hope that, well, I think, as you said, the issue of having a timeline and a time frame for EU's accession in 2030 is key to convince also and continue to have the population engaged and positive about the perspective of EU membership. I think, of course, North Macedonia has been a candidate country, as you said, for almost 20 years, and it has seen its hopes and aspirations being defeated time and again over the past couple of years and decades. So I really hope that you're right and that we are going to see those constitutional changes approved by the end of the year and see the start of negotiations. And again, thank you very much and thank you for your work. And thank you also to our audience for staying so engaged and stay tuned to our future initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta, and thank you also for coming here today and also for the questions. I just want to finish with it. And I said optimist, yes, but rational optimist, because sometimes optimism makes us lazy. We have to work to make this optimism real in the future. So that's why when you mentioned optimist, I wanted to make these points. I usually, when journalists are asking me, are you optimistic? Of course, you cannot take a position, a lead, take a responsibility and tell people, you see, I'm a pessimistic. So stay at home. Don't come and take the challenge. You have to be a rational optimist. You have to show the vision, take responsibility. Otherwise, if we are pessimistic, we just go under depression and maybe visit sometimes someone for help. So thank you very much once again. I'm really delighted being here. You also took from me something that I even didn't want to say. I didn't plan to say, but I'm very happy that I had the chance to share that with you. It was you that gave me such inspiration and you that organized this. So thank you very much. Hope to see you in some other event.